Hello YouTube, it's Barbara Jean. I wanted to talk about prejudice right now. I want to talk about prejudice, yes. There's some serious topics. I have a lot of things on my mind today. Hopefully I'll be able to get them all out. The Lord was just downloading a lot of information. I was thinking about prejudice because I ran across a video, or there's so many of them on the YouTube, or just ridiculous, that about how God is black, or God is white, or God is this color or that color. And I just want to tell you guys, you are in danger. You people who think that God is a particular color, or that He's a respecter of people of certain colors, are trying to make God a certain color. You're in danger. People who are prejudiced, if you have a spirit of prejudice, you need, or that's the word, prejudice. I'm making it a word. If you have prejudice in you about against other nations, we all do to some point, but we need to repent. You need to repent now, because it is a sin that God will not tolerate. Okay, and I'm going to prove this to you. I'm going to go to the book of Acts. Okay, Acts chapter 10, verse 34. Then Peter opened his mouth and said, "Of a truth, I perceive that God is no respecter of persons, but in every nation that feareth him and worketh righteousness is accepted with him." I also want to go to the book of Numbers, and I want to discuss something that happened in the Old Testament. In the book of Numbers, chapter 12, um, Miriam and Aaron are angry at Moses, who was God's prophet. We all know Moses was God's prophet. Moses was married to a woman named Zipporah, who was the daughter of um, a Midianite, an Ishmaelite. He was a priest in the land of Midian, and his daughter named Zipporah, and he was married to her. And anyway, after I don't know how many years had passed, Moses married again. I think Zipporah actually died, but I don't really know for sure, so don't quote me on it. However, Moses marries again. And in chapter 12, Miriam and Aaron speak against Moses because he marries this woman, this Ethiopian woman. Numbers chapter 12. And Miriam and Aaron spake against Moses because of the Ethiopian woman whom he had married, for he had married an Ethiopian woman. That was the only reason they spoke against Moses, because Moses married outside of the race, if you will. He married this woman. Now, if this was a sign, this was actually because Moses was God's prophet. God was showing something to the people, and what God was willing to tolerate and what God was not willing to tolerate. Moses married this woman who was of a different color, and Miriam and Aaron were angry because he married from another race. Then the chapter 12 talks about how angry God was with them both. And he pours his wrath out on Miriam, who ends up with the plague of leprosy. And she's sent outside the camp with this plague. She was terribly plagued with this leprosy. And Moses pleads for her and says, "Lord, forgive her," and God says, not until her punishment's done. She's going to be put to shame for at least 7 days. She's going to be put outside the camp. And after 7 days, her leprosy was healed and she was brought back in. What I believe was happening here, and throughout all of the Old Testament, especially with the people who came from the Exodus out of Egypt, God was demonstrating through each of their rebellions the things that God found intolerable. The different plagues that kept coming was because of certain sins. God was showing that certain sins bring certain plagues. In this case was the plague and the sin of prejudice. And how God was saying, I'm bringing all nations into me. All nations will be blessed. I have no prejudice against someone who has a different color skin. And all are acceptable. All are respectable. All belong to me. And he was punishing Miriam particularly for her intolerance of someone of another color, of another race. And I think actually that perhaps that, not just perhaps, I know that certain sins bring certain plagues. In this case, I believe that leprosy is directly related to prejudice. Also, speaking against the prophets. If if you speak against the prophets, you will probably be. I believe it is directly related to leprosy, that sin. I hope this is making some sense. Okay, our God is no respecter of persons. And I want to say something about this book that we trust in, we read, the Bible. I want you to understand that it's colorblind. I don't know if you realize that. It is colorblind. All the principles in this book can be related to any culture, any race. It doesn't matter what culture or society you are in. You can use these words. They don't depend on your culture. Kindness, love, mercy, forgiveness. These are culturalist moralities. It doesn't matter whether you're a North American native, or you're Scandinavian, or you're African, or you're East Indian, or Chinese, or English, Australian. Doesn't matter what culture you go into, these words apply. Isn't that amazing? The Bible is colorblind. It's colorblind. He came to bless all of society. This book brings life to all cultures. God isn't telling us to be all one culture like the New World Order wants us all to be the same, all wear the same clothes, have the same theology, blah, 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 blah. That's the New World Order. But God, He brings all cultures under the umbrella of this morality. If you are Native American, you can follow these principles and it will not disturb your culture. If you are Scandinavian, you can follow the principles of this book and it will not disturb your culture. Isn't that amazing? Because all these laws in here apply to everyone. The law of loving God, the law of loving each other, the law of bringing life and truth and mercy and grace. They all apply to no matter what culture you belong to, this book applies. I just throw that one in there for free. I was having these thoughts this morning and I hope this is making sense to people out there. God isn't interested in the color of your skin as He is interested in your heart. The principles this book brings life to no matter what culture it goes into, no matter what society it enters, it brings life. I was thinking this morning about sanitary laws and how this book and its sanitary principles saved Europe. Think about it. Before the principles of removing waste and putting it into a sewer system. The Europeans just used to throw their waste, trash, out on the street. Body waste, food waste, everything just got thrown out on the street. Well, that invited disease and rats and pestilence. And that's exactly what happened. The Black Death came into Europe, and then they had to change their system. Well, that system was already applied here in this Bible. It talked about getting rid of the waste and taking it out out of the city and burning it, removing it from the city, removing it and getting rid of it. And that's what saved Europe. The Black Death would have killed everybody. It almost did. Food laws about clean eating, about having, we didn't have refrigeration, so they had to have different kind of laws because they lived in a desert. But it was about preserving life. Their food laws were for the safety of the people so that they could preserve life and keep pestilence and disease out of the food. God was teaching them a principle to keep their bodies clean. Of course, our laws are different because we have refrigeration, but those principles that were brought into having clean food, clean environments in order to prepare food, in order to put them on the shelf so people would stay healthy and clean and healthy and strong, were are based on here, based on this book. Blood touching blood. Guess what? That's a law in the Bible. Blood touching blood. This is what happened. When in France and in different parts of the world, doctors would go from one patient to the other without washing their hands. And basically, blood touched blood, and guess what happened? Plague happened. Plague happened and killed many, many people. Because doctors were spreading the disease from one person to another, to another, to another, because they weren't taking care of their hands, washing their hands. Blood was touching blood. Now, I got off topic a little bit here, but I just wanted to say that this book brings life to every culture it touches. This book, these words, the words of Jesus, are colorblind, culture friendly. they apply to anyone and everyone who wishes to learn the truth. It doesn't require that you change your culture, become Jewish in order to receive these words. That's the amazing, beautiful thing about the word. Anybody can have faith. You don't have to change who you are in order to become a part of God's family. And God is no respecter of persons, and anyone who wants to have faith in his Son, Jesus Christ, will be saved. He's not requiring anybody to change their cultural stand, their cultural heritage, in order to be part of his family, because God created culture. He's the one who divided at the Tower of Babel cultures and nations and spread them out dispersed them into the world. And I wanted to talk about a little bit that just brought to mind because I was thinking this morning about how the culture of the Jewish people, when after the dispersion of the Jews, they were captured and dispersed throughout the world, and how they're finding these new these old tribes of the dispersion, Manasseh and Ephraim and all these the 12 tribes throughout the world. A beautiful picture of the church. Believe me, it's a physical manifestation of the spiritual truth. In India, they've blended these dispersed tribes, blended in so well to their cultures that they adopted, but while at the same time maintaining their Jewish heritage. They're in India they have found a couple of tribes of the lost tribes of Israel, and in Africa and North America and in China and in Russia, all these lost tribes that have been dispersed throughout the world, and they have blessed the world because of their presence in these cultures, in these countries. And it's the same thing that, in a spiritual sense, Christ came and the word dispersed throughout all these different cultures. And God is gathered in from all the different nations of the world, the peoples that belong to Him because of their faith. I think, it's a beautiful picture. So anyway, if you're having a problem with prejudice and think that God is a certain color or a respecter of persons of a certain color, you need to change your mind and you need to repent, because that attitude will bring a plague on you, and it is not godly. It is not of God. Okay? So remember, our God is colorblind. Well, He's not colorblind. He's not colorblind. Because if you think about white, the color white embraces all colors. I don't know if any of you've ever studied color. I have. When you get a prism and white light goes through the prism, it disperses the colors. That's what causes a rainbow. And it's though God, who is this white light, dispersed all these beautiful colors throughout the earth. And then it's only when we all come together that we can appreciate the beauty of that perfect light. We all become part of that perfect light when we are all brought together in unity under this umbrella called the Bible, under this culture-friendly word of truth. Anyway, I hope this makes sense to you out there. God bless you. Get to know Jesus. He is the only way, the truth, and the light. God bless.